His name was Joseph,
That
wasn't it?
would have been perfect. Imagine.
As a matter of fact, he married the boss
Years ago.
got her to convert.
They're talking it now.
Yeah, so there were sorry?
Who, Joey's brother?
No, Joseph.
Oh.
Okay. So let's start with the blessing that we make before we learn Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al divrei Torah.
Torah.
Joseph has two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. The older was
Is Mendel there?
Mendel is here today.
I
The
just
older
heard
one
him.
was, yeah, you did. The older one was You sure? Manasseh. Manasseh was the older one. Mendel, who did Yaakov put his right hand on? Ephraim. So we're going to learn about that story right now. Let's open up our books. We have a few sources today, but okay. Baruch, would you like to read for us the first 3 paragraphs of source number 1?
After these events, someone said to Yosef, "Behold, your father is ill." He took his 2 sons with him, Manasseh and Ephraim. Yisrael saw Yosef's sons, and he said, "Who are these?" Yosef said to his father, "These are my sons, whom God has given me in this place." He said, "Please take them to me, and I will bless them." Yosef took the 2 of them, Ephraim in his right hand toward Yisrael's left, and Manasseh in his left toward Yisrael's right, and he brought them near to him. Yisrael stretched out his right hand and placed it on the head of Ephraim, although he was the younger, and his left hand on the head of Manasseh. He deliberately positioned his hands so, even though Manasseh was the firstborn.
Thank you. Chaim, would you please continue?
He blessed Joseph and said, God before whom my fathers walked, Abraham and Isaac, God who has shepherded me from my inception until this day, the angel who redeemed me from all evil, may he bless the lads. May my name be called upon them, together with the name of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, and may they multiply like fish within the land.
Continue.
Joseph saw that his father placed his right hand on Ephraim's head, and it was displeasing in his eyes. He took hold of his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head and place it on Manasseh's head. Joseph said to his father, Not so, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Place your right hand on his head. But his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. He too will become a people, and he too will become great. However, his younger brother will be greater than he, and the fame of his descendants will fill the nation.
Okay, go. So here we have the story. It sets the stage for us trying to figure out what is greatness. Does greatness come? What is true greatness? Where does true greatness come from, and how to become truly great? Page number 2. Joseph thought that Manasseh should be blessed before Ephraim, and that Jacob should have placed his right hand on Manasseh's head. Jacob, however, said to him, I know, my son, I know. I understand that your opinion is that Manasseh should come first because he is the firstborn. But my opinion is that his younger brother will be greater than he, and therefore he should come first, and that is indeed what he did. The Kli Yakar, and we're going to learn this in a moment, who was the Kli Yakar? What is the words of the Kli Yakar? Kli Yakar is one of the great commentaries on the Torah. Explains that both Joseph's approach and Jacob's approach have a valid basis and justification according to the Torah. First of all, the blessing in question, which Jacob gave to Joseph and his sons, was a blessing of abundance. May they multiply like fish within the land. So why specifically did he compare them to fish? Is because number one, fish lay many, many eggs at a time. and they're extremely fruitful, and they multiply very fast. The other thing
I don't
is that
know.
there's no ayin hara, right? We say kanahara or kanaina hara. The fish don't have no kanaina hara.
What is that?
The fish are not fish because they are covered by the water. The evil eye does not affect them. So when you say kanahara, kanahara became a slang. Kanahara doesn't mean anything. Kanahara is short for kanainahara or kain ayin hara, that there should be no evil eye. But people just say kanahara.
Or no Kanahara.
Yeah. He-
Ken or kind means no, so it's a
Kain
double
in
negative.
Kain in Yiddish means no. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Like
so
ATM
no,
machine.
no Kanahara. I see. So Kanahara, I see.
Yeah.
We didn't know
Kain
that.
ayin hara. There should be
Thank
no
you.
ayin hara. Like an ATM machine, we say no kanaina, no kanahara. Okay. He proceeds to explain why Jacob thought that this blessing should specifically be given to the younger brother. Let's read that inside. Zalman, would you like to read us source number 2?
Joseph felt appropriate to give the eldest son a blessing of abundance as the eldest son receives a double portion of the inheritance. Jacob replied,
No, I
my
can't.
son, I know, repeating I know, means okay,
And he's not
I know
speaking
the
right into it.
eldest receives double, and from this perspective, he deserves a greater portion of the blessing for abundance. However, his younger brother will become greater, for God chose the smaller. One who has an element of smallness is lifted up by God. This occurred with all of Abraham's descendants. Ishmael, Abraham's eldest, was passed over in favor of Isaac. Esau, in favor of Jacob. Reuben, Jacob's eldest, in favor of Joseph. And Joseph's eldest, Manasseh, in favor of Ephraim.
Okay.
So what happened to Manasseh and Ephraim? That Ephraim became greater.
What happened that he became greater? His descendant. He was blessed with greater descendants and leaders from his descendants. Smaller is greater, and the truth is that there's a lot of what we're going to learn today is learning about from Ephraim and his name, from Manasseh and his name and their character, about what is considered greater, meaning them, their two, and their characters, and in who they were, which is considered greater. In matters of holiness, the fact that something is externally relatively small is not a deficiency. On the contrary, God usually chooses the small, and anyone who possesses an element of smallness is elevated and raised up to become many thousands. It is specifically the smaller one who serves as a vessel for God's very essence, and it is specifically he who receives the loftiest blessings. This is indeed what occurred with Ephraim and Manasseh. Ephraim was the younger one, and precisely for this reason, he was a greater receptacle for Jacob's blessings. This is why he received the blessing before Manasseh. Humility. This idea also applies to our divine service. Regarding Torah study, it is specifically through conducting oneself in a manner of "let my soul be like dust to all," being in a state of self-effacement. So the funny thing is that I learned this as I was preparing. I always thought that self-effacement was more similar to self-sabotage, or to saying evil and cruel things about oneself. But it seems self-effacement is not that way. Self-effacement is humility. Self-effacement is trying to stay out of the limelight, and not shoving yourself into conversations and into places where, whether you're wanted there or not, but kind of, sitting on the side. So that's the word. It's the difference between self-effacement and self-deprecating, right? Self-deprecating would be like comedians
No,
who make fun of themselves.
yeah, but that's self-hatred. That's different. That's more like humility.
Self-deprecating?
Yeah. Self-deprecating is actually a positive.
Yeah, well, that's what he just said.
Oh, it is positive.
Yeah.
So what would be negative? But when comedians make fun of themselves and make these jokes about themselves, or when people say things about themselves that are not true, but just to make it like I don't know
Well,
whether it's coming
that
from
would
low
be self-hatred.
self-esteem
That
or
would be self-hatred.
self-hatred.
No.
So somebody makes a comment like,
That's deprecating.
"Oh,
Yeah.
how clumsy I am! I missed the ball again." What would how
Right.
would you?
Was Dangerfield
That
an
would be
example
the-
of self-hatred or self-deprecating?
Deprecating.
That neither. He's a comedian who's telling jokes.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
No, self-deprecating is like,
Putting yourself down.
I'm not going that far. Even though you are. But even though I'm not that different,
Got it. Okay. So let's say this example of
Or
I'm
even
so
make fun of
clumsy I missed the ball again.
that
or-
would be self-deprecating.
that would be self-deprecating.
That's okay. Self-hatred is more of a personal thing.
Self-deprecating and self-effacement. That's what we're talking about.
So
It's more
that's
personal.
so that's not self-deprecating.
No, that's self-hatred.
That's self-hatred. Okay. I'm learning something today.
If it's
So-
true.
So it's important to clarify over here that humility, that true humility or Torah humility is not low self-esteem.
Right.
Low
Of course.
self-esteem is something that needs to be helped and built up for a person to believe in themselves and believe in what they can accomplish.
Right.
But humility means, let's say Moses, right? Moses was the most humble man to ever walk the face of the earth, and it says so in the Torah. Moses stood up to those who rebelled. He had no issue standing up to them. Korach and his assembly, when they made their coup, Moses had no issue getting up there in front of them and telling them that they're all going to die for messing with him. But it wasn't about him, it was about his position. Well, what was it? It was a great line. It's not you who has the power, it's your position who has the power. In other words, Moses
Mhm.
understood, and Moses' humility came from an understanding or a perspective that had God given someone else my mission, they would have done a better job at it. But his humility and his viewing of himself as an extension of God, that he's here for a purpose, and that he's not here just, to boss people around and tell them what to do. Rather, he's here on a on a godly mission, gave him the greatest strength and the greatest backbone that one could have, because he wasn't working on his own, he was working for God.
Right.
Back inside, humility. Regarding Torah study, it is specifically through conducting oneself in the manner of let my soul be like dust to all, being in a state of self-effacement and smallness, to the point of being like dust, that we become a vessel capable of receiving the blessing that God will open our heart to his Torah. Mitch, would you like to read for us source number 3?
Rabbi Abba said, in the name of Shema. The school of Shemani argued with the school of Hillel for 3 years. One said the law follows us, and the other said the law follows us. The heavenly voice told them, both are words of the living God. And the law follows the school of Hillel.
You don't have
Both
it
are
on your
words of the living God. Why does the law follow the school of Hillel? Was the church and humble. Each their
I
opinion.
should have sent it to
Include
you
the
then.
school of Shemini. Moreover, they would begin with the opinion of the school of Shammai before stating
Hello. Whoever reads should be in the microphone.
Okay. So, a general concept that we can learn about much more is, what does it mean that these and those are both the word of the living God? How is it possible that two opposing opinions can both be godly? And the very short answer is that for law, there can only be one law. But in terms of Torah, there can be more than one way of looking at things, and there can be more than one framework, more than one opinion that fits within the framework of the Torah. Continuing on page number 4, the Rebbe, this concept is also relevant to prayer. It is a halachic requirement that prayer must be carried out in a serious state of mind, with submission and humility, and considering ourselves as small. It is specifically through such conduct that our prayer draws down a flow of all divine blessings, extending even beyond all measures and limitations. Humility is a vessel for all blessings. So we have it, first of all, for Torah learning. If you really want to understand the depth of the Torah that you're understanding, or a difficult passage in the Talmud, you have to come at it with humility. Prayer works best when it is coming from a place of humility. And this is the overall lesson we can learn from the daily section of the Torah portion. We need to learn from Jacob's conduct. Just as Jacob placed Ephraim before Manasseh because of Ephraim's quality of being the smaller one, so too should we give precedence to the smallness within ourselves over the greatness within ourselves. Page number 5. We all possess elements of greatness. We study Torah and observe mitzvahs, including in the most meticulous manner, as we have just done during Hanukkah. You know what's so beautiful about Hanukkah? How many candles do you have? What? It's our baby's birthday. Very good. What is so special about Hanukkah? So, how many candles do you have to light on Hanukkah?
44.
All altogether.
44.
Plus the
Right.
shaman.
I know because it's on the box. The box comes with 44 candles.
And you're done with the box by the end of Hanukkah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Read the Cliff Notes.
Okay. So the true answer is that the minimum requirement is to light one candle every night. The better way to do it is for each person to light one candle every night. Each person in the family to light one candle every night. And the best of the best, the glad kosher of the glad kosher, the mahadran of the mahadran, the most fantastic and incredulous is not the right word, but an incredible way to light the menorah is to start with 1 and then go to 2 and then go to 3 and to end up lighting 44 candles, including the shamishes, right? 36 plus 8. So what's beautiful about Hanukkah is that every single Jew, from the most religious to the least observant, fulfills this mitzvah in the way that is the best of the best. The mahadran of the mahadran, the glat of the glat kosher. That's what's so beautiful about Hanukkah. So we're just coming from Hanukkah, and everybody observed the Hanukkah light, the lighting of the Hanukkah menorah in the most best way possible, the most meticulous manner. Nevertheless, there is something even more elevated that must come first, the smallness within us that my soul be like dust to all. Indeed, it is specifically through humility and lowliness that we are able to reach high levels. As it is written, high and holy is where I dwell, and with the crushed and lowly of spirit. This means that being crushed and lowly of spirit is the vessel for drawing down God's very essence, which is beyond all forms of external revelation. This drawing down of God's essence also extends into revealed aspects, generating abundant and exceptional blessings for success in Torah study and fulfillment of mitzvahs, including prayer, as well as drawing down blessings for material matters, children, health, and livelihood, and in all of these with expansiveness and in a manner beyond measure and limitation. A person is born with a natural ego, a desire to succeed, advance, and accumulate achievements, to be talented, appreciated, and loved. And it's an important driving force. It's an important driving force, our ego. But when it takes the center stage and it becomes the driving force for everything, but not only the driving force behind everything, but when our ego takes a front seat in the car, then it becomes a problem. Someone who is full of himself eventually comes to a halt, finds it difficult to truly grow. because there is no room within him for something new. Just like a cup which is full to the brim with plain water can't have any space for wine. So too, when one believes he already knows everything, he's not open to deeper learning, and no one can correct him when he is mistaken. So I want to put a plug here that please, if you ever see me acting in such a manner, call me out on it. There was once a rabbi, and he was an incredible Torah scholar, but the one thing that he was missing was humility. And so he hired someone that this person should go around, follow him around, saying to him, "You're nothing, you're nothing, you're nothing, you're nothing." Anyways, one time he's walking around, and one of the townspeople sees him, and he says, "Rabbi, you're really nothing." And the rabbi gets all upset. He says, "What do you mean? This guy's coming around saying you're nothing, and you're paying him, and me, I say you're nothing, and you're getting upset." He says, "Yeah, because for that guy, he's a scholar. For him to call me nothing, that's a compliment. But coming from you." The same is true in relationships, in marriage, and in society. An inflated ego does not allow for genuine listening or containing another person's feelings. One who is full of himself has less space to truly love someone else, as the famous story of the guy who's going on a date with this girl. And for 2 hours, he's speaking all about himself and his accomplishments. I'm not reading from inside right now. His accomplishments, his achievements, and everything that he's done. And after about 2 hours, he says, "Okay, enough of me speaking. I've told you all about myself. Now, your turn. What do you think of me?" This certainly also applies with our relationship to God as well. The more we distance ourselves from ego and draw close to self-nullification, the closer we become to God, and the more fitting a vessel we become to receive God's blessings. Self-nullification opens the heart, clears the space, and allows for the flow of the divine. So when Jacob stood before Manasseh and Ephraim, he chose to bestow the greater blessing upon the younger one, not because of his age, but because of what he represented. He represented smallness, humility, and self-nullification, which are the tools, the greatest tools for receiving the greatest blessings from God. And this is the same thing that enables deeper understanding in Torah study and also love for our fellow Jews and for God. Okay, so what was the story and what was the blessing? Part number B. Joan, do you have the PDF in front of you?
If source 4, is that where we're at?
That's where we're at.
I don't say the names right though, Rabbi.
That's fine.
So help me. Okay. He blessed them on that day, saying, "Through you shall the people of Israel bless." Say,
Israel, yeah, we got that
saying,
one good.
God make,
Sorry.
may God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. He placed Ephraim ahead of Manasseh. Israel said to Joseph, "Behold, I am dying. God will be with you, and he will bring you back to the land of your fathers. I have given you one portion more than your brothers, which I took from the hand of the Amorites with my sword and with my bow. One portion more than your brothers, the actual city of Shechem, which will be for you one share over your brothers, which I took from the hand of the Amorites, from Esau, who engaged in Amorites' behavior."
Thank you. You know, when I moved to Florida, one of the rabbis over here let me know that Florida is the land of our fathers.
I don't get it.
All our ancestors are buried here. So,
There are more Jews here.
Oh,
the land of your fathers. He said, "You're going to be a rabbi. You're going to do some burials."
I'm going to do some burials. Oh.
Okay, so that's what was the that Jacob blessed Joseph with an additional portion in the land of Israel. So what does that mean to us? Let's jump right in. At bottom of page number 6, the Rebbe. This is also connected to the concluding verse of the daily section of the Torah portion, which states, "Which I took from the land of the Amorites with my sword and my bow." On the literal level, this refers to the land of the Amorites that Jacob conquered with his swords and his bows, which later became, page 7, the inheritance of Ephraim and Manasseh in the land of Israel. The Amorites were the strongest of the 7 nations, so it follows that conquering the portion of the Amorites includes the conquest of all 7 nations. So I don't know what would be considered the lock of the United States.
What did I think?
The lock of the United States.
Lock?
So certain countries have a city which is considered the lock to that city. That if you can destroy that city and conquer that city, then you've got the entire the rest of it is easy to conquer. If you can control Washington D.C., you got a pretty good chance at getting the rest of the United States. Though I don't know if you'd say that because you got a lot of hillbillies out there with tractors and shotguns.
That's the state government, state militia.
But I would assume that they would call in all the big guns if Washington was being under attack. At any point, so the Amorites, they were the strongest of the 7 nations that inhabited Israel at the time. And therefore, by giving that to Joseph, he was giving him the access to the entire land. So what are the 7 nations that were living in the land of Israel at the time have to do with us? Let's continue. Refining character traits. In the spiritual sense, and in terms of our personal spiritual work, this means the following. The 7 nations, the Canaanites, the Amorites, and so on, symbolize the 7 negative character traits in the human heart. The harshest and most harmful of these is represented by the Amorite. The spiritual conquest of the 7 nations is our work of conquering and refining the 7 negative traits of the heart and elevating them to holiness. Since the heart distributes blood to all the limbs, it follows that by conquering the 7 traits of the heart, our entire conduct becomes proper. In this way, we conquer the land of the 7 nations and transform it into the land of Israel, a land that is desired to do the will of its creator. And that's basically our mission in life, is to take ourselves and turn ourselves into vehicles for God and godly pursuit. So, what are the 7 emotions? I mean, in general, and we've spoken about this before, that we are split mainly, the driving force behind everything. So, our actions would be split into 3 parts: our thought, our speech, and our action. So, those are things that we do. We think, we speak, and we act. Usually, and in a healthy scenario, the thought will lead to speech, the speech will lead to action. But that's what we're doing. Who we are is our intellect and our emotion. Our intellect is the way we think, and our emotion is the way we react. And when we're talking to people, usually your intellect is going to be hopefully objective to a certain degree and involved in Torah study to a certain degree. When it comes to our emotional traits, that's where all the haywire begins. So yes, our intellect can control our emotion, but the goal is to change our reactions and our reactionary capability so that we will be more in tune with what God wants of us. And this is split into, according to the Kabbalah and Hasidism, split into 7 components, which are the cause, or the what control everything that goes on within us and the way we relate to people and to things. Those 7 attributes are kindness, restraint, compassion, endurance, humility, bonding, and expression. And we gave a class, was it in the World of Kabbalah, that we went through these and explained them at length. But in very short, kindness is about love, giving, extending from yourself to someone else. Restraint would be pulling back within yourself, or holding back, or being more strict, or let's say, for example, criticism, right? So criticism is really a mixture of the two. criticism is on the one hand, you're moving out towards someone else and you're giving constructive feedback, but it is an act of severity. The criticism itself is not a positive and friendly experience, but you are moving out of yourself to give that. So, in general, we have so far the love and the kindness, and then we have the strictness. Compassion is the attribute of mercy. Mercy is when you give someone even though they're undeserving. That would be mercy. Endurance is the drive to prevail. Humility is the tendency to contend with an opponent. Humility is, I don't know if that's necessarily the best translation here. So the difference between enduring and humility is whether you're going up against obstacles that are from within, would be endurance, and humility would be standing up against obstacles from without, meaning external obstacles. Bonding is the attribute of connection and devotion. Expression is the desire to articulate and bring things outwards. These 7 attributes form a person's emotional personality. And our task is to take these 7 attributes as they exist in their unrefined state and the way we were born, and to elevate them so that we should be kind to things that God wants us to be kind to, and to hold back from things that God wants us to hold back from. For example, a person might feel like getting involved in naturally a person may feel as as like giving charity to places that are not worthy of receiving our charity, and the person might hold back from eating foods which are beneficial for them, and the work would be to make sure that we're channeling our kindness into places that God wants us to be kind towards, and that we are holding back from things that God wants us to hold back from. So let's look at kindness. Refining the attribute of kindness, source number 5. Susie, do you have the booklet in front of you?
No,
Yeah,
I
you
never
want it?
got it. Sorry, Rabbi, I never got it.
He doesn't like to read.
No, but I didn't get the email.
You can use mine. Ask somebody else, please, Rabbi.
Okay, no worries. Baruch, would you like to start source number 5? First 2 paragraphs.
The kindness of Yishmael, although it comes from the right side and therefore involves giving, nevertheless, that giving is for his own benefit, to display his wealth and the splendor of his greatness, and to gain a name and glory for himself. As
Humility.
explained in the first chapter of Tanya, based on the statement of the sages that all charity and kindness performed by the nations of the world is only for self-glorification. Accordingly, this also defines the manner and measure of the giving, that he gives only from his surplus, from his excess and leftovers. In other words, Yishmael's conduct is such that he first uses his wealth to fully satisfy all his own needs. Only after he has taken for himself and surplus remains does he give charity or perform acts of kindness. And even then, he is thinking about his own benefit and gain, about how this will elevate his image
So, is he being kind?
to himself.
Yeah, he's being kind to others as well. At the end of the day, the poor people are getting food. But why was he doing it? He wasn't doing it because God wants him to be kind. He was doing it because he wants other people to think that he's a good person. Let's contrast that with Abraham. Chaim, would you like to read Abraham?
Where?
In contrast, page number 8.
Oh, in contrast, the kindness of Abraham is of an entirely opposite nature. The reason for his kindness is that he regarded himself as a material. Besides the point, we see this in Abraham's giving to all people, even to desert nomads, stemming from his profound humility and self-effacement. He truly considered himself as dust and ashes in a state of complete self-nullification, not sensing himself as an independent entity at all. On the contrary, he saw himself as extraneous in the world. Therefore, he gave from all that he possessed, not only from excess and leftovers to others, leaving little for himself. Everyone else was more important in his eyes and more deserving of good than he himself. In other words, by the very nature of kindness, there is a tendency to give and to bestow generously and without limitation. Moreover, the other comes before the self, because the giver views himself as insignificant, while seeing the value and worth of every other person, whoever they may be. Accordingly, the manner and measure of his giving are such that he does not give only from surplus, but also from things that are essential to him, things he truly needs.
So there we see that by Abraham was very different. By Abraham, he was giving not because he wanted people to think that he gives, but because he actually saw that he saw all of his possessions not as his, but as from God to give and share with others.
We therefore find that the difference between the kindness of Ishmael and the kindness of the Jewish people is that Ishmael gives only from surplus, and his giving reinforces self-importance, whereas the Jewish people give from essential things, and their giving flows from self-nullification.
For example, if you look at the giving in Gaza, right? They give, but first they have to take all the money from the aid that came and fill their own coffers. Then what's left over after they've taken all the millions of dollars for themselves, they'll give out and hand out, some rice to the people who are waiting in line. As opposed to, hopefully, what happens with the Jewish people is that we'll share everything that we have. And if you look in the Jewish communities, you'll see this everywhere. We'll share from whatever we have to make sure that others are taken care of.
Right, Jews give,
Anonymous,
Mm-hmm.
and then Democrats.
should be, but then you said sometimes better if it isn't,
Mm-hmm.
because it's others,
Mm-hmm.
so.
What was it that you said the best way is to give charity anonymously and then the other person to find out about it?
Did I say that?
I don't know, someone said that. But the best thing is that you give anonymously and then they found out that you gave anonymously. That's the best. And you drop the hint. Who wants to hear a story?
Of course.
In my childhood, this is Rabbi Mendel Shem Tov of blessed memory speaking. During the years of World War II, we fled to Samarkand together with many Jews who escaped the front. So this was from Russia. They fled to the far east. I think it's in Uzbekistan. And that is where we lived. Conditions were dreadful. Hunger, disease, and constant hardship. Everyone suffered terribly. One day, my father came home holding what he felt a great treasure, a loaf of bread. For a family with 6 children, it was priceless. A single loaf could bring real joy, even enough to last an entire week. The children were excited, happy, already preparing to sit around the table. Then my father took a knife, cut the loaf in half, and handed me one half. Go, he said. Bring this to the Kasselman family who lives nearby. He added quietly, they haven't eaten in 2 days. There is a characteristic story of the life. This is a characteristic story of the lives of Hasidim in those days. A life that embodied true kindness, kindness given from scarcity, born of self-nullification, without drama, without calculations. This story beautifully expresses the saying found in Hayom Yom. In the days of Rabbi Shner Zalman of Liadi, it was common among the Hasidim to repeat the following maxim. This piece of bread that I have is yours as much as it is mine. And they would even place the word yours first. Yours as much as it is mine. Page number 9, a little bit down. The sword and the bow. This entire idea I took from the land of the Amorites, the conquest of the land of the 7 nations, and its transformation into the land of Israel through a person's internal work is accomplished with the sword and the bow. As explained by the Targum Onkelos, this means with my prayer and with my supplication, that is, the divine service of prayer. Hasidic teachings explain the difference between a sword and a bow. A sword kills an enemy who is standing close by and clearly visible, but it cannot kill an enemy who is standing at a distance or concealed. A bow, by contrast, enables a person to strike even an enemy. Well, not the bow, the arrow, right? Enables a person to strike even an enemy who is far away and concealed. Today's vernacular, that would be a rifle. But how does the bow reach a distant and concealed enemy? Precisely through pulling the bowstring back lower and lower and then releasing the arrow toward a faraway target. The more one pulls the
That's why they
bowstring
pull
back,
back.
the farther the arrow will travel. Well,
That's why you pull back the trigger.
trigger, same thing.
Mhm.
Revealed and concealed negativity. So what does this mean? Page number 10. What does this mean in our prayers? Our prayers have also these two attributes to it. All of this applies to the divine service of prayer as well. There are two types of negative forces within the human inclination. One type we feel within ourselves as an enemy that is close and revealed, right? There are the challenges that we know we face on a daily level, the things that are hard for us, the things that we have to grapple with. There is also another type that we don't feel within ourselves because it is deeply concealed, an enemy that is distant and concealed, and that is the things that have an effect over us that we don't necessarily notice about ourselves. This is alluded to in the verse to silence the enemy and the avenger. The enemy is the openly revealed adversary, while the avenger is the hidden adversary who schemes in secret. To conquer the negative force that we feel within ourselves, the enemy that is close and revealed, the level of prayer called my prayer, corresponding to the sword, is sufficient. At this level, there is self negation. We bow and prostrate ourselves. However, this is not yet the deepest level of self negation. To conquer the negative force that is more concealed within a person, the avenger, we must reach the level of prayer called my supplication, corresponding to the bow. As the Alter Rebbe writes in source number 6, through prayer and beseeching God, we humble ourselves greatly, and the more humility we display, the greater the heavenly mercy we will receive. This is analogous to pulling back the string on a bow. The further back it goes, the stronger the force of the arrow will be, until the most hidden elements of the klipa are destroyed. Page 12. Klipa is literally means shell. It refers to the undesirable aspects. We bring ourselves to the deepest and most powerful state of self-negation, submission, and humility by pleading with God bitterly, with a feeling of profound lowliness, with heartfelt supplication that God help us against the enemy and the avenger, the negative inclination. We are thus pulling the bowstring back lower and lower. At that point, we are certain to succeed because we have the assurance that I labored and I found. If you labored, you will find, and God will help you. Then all the interpretations of the verse to silence the enemy and the avenger are fulfilled. Key points. Wait, how was that page 12 and then we're back to page 11? It must have been page 11. Okay, page 11 towards the bottom. Key points. Jacob approaches his passing. He gives precedence and blessing to Ephraim, the younger one, because Ephraim is destined to become greater than him. The Kli Yakar explains the preference for the younger son stems from the principle that in matters of holiness, self-nullification and humility are vessels for the revelation of the divine presence. The message for us: when Torah study and prayer are approached with self-nullification and submission, learning is truly absorbed and the prayer achieves its effect. When a person adopts a path of humility, he merits greater spiritual ascent. Jacob grants Joseph's sons an additional portion in the land of the Amorites, which he had conquered. Page 12. In the spiritual service, the 7 nations correspond to the second negative character traits within a person. A Jew's task is to conquer and refine these traits and elevate them to holiness. The conquest of the Amorite, which represents all 7 nations, is achieved through the sword and the bow, referring to the service of prayer. The sword corresponds to the revealed enemy, and the bow to the distant and hidden one. Just as drawing the bowstring farther downward allows the arrow to reach a greater distance, so too, the deeper the self-nullification and the more abundant the supplications for help of God, the greater and more abundant the flow of God's blessing drawn down towards a person. Takeaway. One of the most important keys to success in life is setting aside the ego and being willing to listen to the advice of others. This applies in every area: raising children, work, and as we have learned, it is especially essential for success in serving God, in Torah study, and in prayer. L'chaim.
Do we know, that Ephraim, did greater than Manasseh? I mean, did
Did he end up
do-
becoming greater?
Yeah, did he do something that
So I'm trying to
justified the
remember.
blessing?
So where do we see the blessing in practicality?
Right.
Something in my mind is telling me that Gideon was from Ephraim, was he?
Who?
Gideon.
He was from Manasseh.
He was from Manasseh? Oops. I don't recall.
Yeshua.
Sorry?
Yeshua.
Joshua was from Ephraim. Okay, good. There we go. Joshua came from Ephraim. Joshua led the Jewish people into Israel.
I don't know who it is. No.
Came from the tribe of Ephraim.
And he was Moshe Rabbeinu's
Right-hand man.
mhm.
Yeah.
The younger one.
Please join us tomorrow at 12:30 for a lunch and learn. It's, the class is very exciting. Done some good preparation and it's going to be a good one. The cost is $18. You can sign up on the website. If you need a link, let me know. Looking forward to seeing you guys there. This Shabbat morning, God willing, we will be having a minyan. And next week, Tuesday, continuing with the regular scheduling. Take care. Have a wonderful day, Joan and Susie.
Thank you, Rabbi. You too.